Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Dana Scranton, and welcome to Pursuit of Wisdom and our ongoing series on the six basic human needs and how you can apply them to both you and your customers, clients, team members, whoever you seek to inspire, to impact, to inform. So, we've been through the four prior human needs: certainty, change, growth, and connection. Today is going to be contribution. Now, this isn't an important one, as they all are, but it's a little bit different than most because contribution is something that oftentimes has very subjective meaning to people. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about the subjectivity of the idea of contribution. And we're going to do that by delving into some quotes and some kind of abstract thought. So let me get the presentation up here, and it's the same basic presentation that we have used on the prior ones. So here we go. Let me drag it over here. Okay, contribution. All right, I'm going to start with some quotes here. These are quotes that give you an idea of the breadth of contribution. Now, keep in mind that what we're talking about here is a bidirectional concept with these human needs. You seek to identify and to understand the needs of others, and in so doing, you figure out how best to connect them with a means of fulfilling those needs. But they also apply to you as the entrepreneur, as the individual, as human. And the better you understand them for yourself, the better you're going to be able to understand them for others. So that's the idea behind the bidirectional nature of what we're talking about here. Okay, so we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. That's Winston Churchill. Now, that's a very powerful and insightful bit of wisdom. If you don't give, you don't get. I mean, that's solid wisdom. It's been around for millennia and it works. But sometimes people get confused with what that really means, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Our prime purpose in life is to help others, and if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. This is tribal wisdom. We have evolved to the state of society and humanity that we currently have because we as a tribe, we as human beings, helped others along the way and were helped by others. No one has ever become poor by giving. Now, some might argue about that, but the concept is when you give, you receive. And what you receive is up to you to determine the value and how you apply that in your life. You are to become a creator, not a competitor. You are to get what you want, but in such a way that when you get it, every other man gets more than he has now. Now, that was from the 1910 book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace. And again, that's a sound piece of wisdom. What that really points to, and we're going to talk more about Wattles' philosophies, is your objective is to elevate the lives of others. And in so doing, you are rewarded. Okay. So your effort, your contribution to the individuals, to the marketplace, elevates them to a higher level than they were, which enables them to make a contribution to the lives of others. See how that works? Now, as I've hinted to here, contribution is a foundational quality of humanity. It's who we are. And to the extent that we live that quality, we will prosper. To the extent that we don't, you're not necessarily going to have a fulfilled life. Some may, some don't, most don't. Selfless contribution is an act of love and leadership. What does selfless mean? We're going to get into that a little bit more, but essentially what it means is you give without any expectation of a return. Return comes to you for those who appreciate what they've gotten. Not everybody appreciates it. Contribution is a primary ingredient in the recipe for receiving and success. I think I've said that enough times, but I wanted to say it directly there. You contribute, you then receive, and that receiving is part and partial to your success. Now, as an entrepreneur, contribution is your shining moment. When you can contribute to the lives of others because you have understood their needs and you have a product in one make, shape, way, or form that can help them, then you are acting truly in your natural state of entrepreneurship. Okay, so some more quotes. Now, all of these quotes are from a book called Greatness by David Cook. And they've got more to do with sports psychology than you might apply to entrepreneurship, but they are the same. Okay, the same ideas and concepts that are applied to a high performance sports team operate in humanity. And actually, it's the other way around. The rules of humanity make sports teams better, make individuals better. So, greatness is not measured by what you achieve for yourself, but by what you inspire others to achieve. Now, that word inspire, let's play with that a bit. That inspire is a worthy objective. But you can also elevate people by what you instruct, how you inform, how you impact them. That inspires them to move forward in life. So it's really the degree to which you offer them something they don't currently have that helps them move forward. You can call it inspiration, but you can also call it contribution. Greatness is not measured by what you achieve for yourself, but by what you contribute to others so that they may achieve. The path to greatness is found in serving others and making a difference in their lives. I think we've come to that conclusion. Selfless exceptionalism requires that we focus on the needs of the team over individual accolades. Okay, selfless exceptionalism means you focus on becoming the very best version of you that you can create. And you do that so that you may help others. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a team. We could rewrite the word team to be your marketplace, to be your focus group, your community. It can be anything you want to apply it to, so that you are not looking for the individual glory of having done so. Your purpose and vision are all about creating results in the lives of others for which you are rewarded. Make sense? A true champion recognizes that their legacy is built not just on their own accomplishments, but on the contributions they make to the success of others. That right there is your statement of entrepreneurship. A true entrepreneur recognizes that their success, prosperity, and legacy is built not just on their own accomplishments and rewards, but on the contributions they make to the success of others. See how you can just rewrite that in a more general form? So these are things that are very important to understand as we move forward. Now, contribution can come in a lot of different forms. Most people, when they hear the word contribution, they think time, money, lending a hand, maybe ideas. Yeah, well, I can throw you some ideas here and there. But there's really a lot of different ways that you can contribute. And this is just a short list. I mean, emotional support, a kind word, teaching people how to do something, leadership in the broad sense, understanding and meeting the needs of others, resourcefulness, courage, and the list can go on and on. So don't get tied around the idea that contribution is a narrow path. It is not. It is as broad as you need to make it in order to make an impact on the population, the individual, the group that you seek to influence and inspire. Now, contribution can lead to many things. It can lead to opportunity, influence, inspiration, impact. We've covered that earlier. Confidence, change, and growth. This is what contribution can lead to. But two that are very important for you as the entrepreneur are opportunity and confidence. And it goes both ways again. When you help your marketplace, your customer, to contribute because of the product, which is goods, services, or leadership that you brought to them, you have created opportunity for them. And in the process, you've created opportunity for you because you are now recognized, you are appreciated, right? And then there's confidence. One of the problems with contribution in the global sense is that some, if not many, feel they are inadequate to contribute. They feel like they don't know enough, they aren't enough. Your job is to make sure that your customers understand they are more than enough and that your product can help them to become greater, to become more, to have the confidence to step forward and contribute. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, I've got an acne medicine. How's that going to help? Looks, how they look in the mirror, how they feel about themselves. Or, well, I got a fuel supplement. How's that going to help somebody gain confidence? Because they can step up and help other people get better miles per gallon, liters per kilometer or kilometers per liter, or they can have a cleaner environment. They can help people save money. There's all sorts of different ways you can look at that. But teaching them that they can have confidence to contribute, that's a big deal. The KLT factor, know, like, trust. Now, you hear this all the time in the solo entrepreneur field. When it comes to contribution, KLT is really one of the goals. Think about this. When you contribute to the livelihood, to the welfare, to the confidence of another individual, and they were able to pay you a certain amount of money and they got more value for having received that product from you, then they now like and trust you. And they may know you better if you're consistent. If you come every single time with the message, you're consistent, you're out there, you're authentic, then they will come to know you. They will like you for the message, for the concern you have for them, for the contributions you make, and they'll come to trust you. All right. But it's individual. The magnitude of KLT is subjective to the individual. Some people require far more in the way of proof that they can trust you, like you, know you, than others. And that's up to you to determine. Some marketplaces are less flexible in that terms. So you as an entrepreneur have to determine that and then figure out the strategy to achieve the KLT you require. Okay, now contribution, as I've said, is really, it's a seed for KLT. When you're contributing to an individual, a marketplace, or a group, think in terms of what you need to do to make sure they know, like, and trust you. Okay? Contributing the useful things. A lot of marketing messages out there, you get plastered with them and you're asking, well, what does this have to do with me? Exactly. Your message needs to be useful, just as your product needs to be useful. You need to teach. You need to elevate them. You need to give them something that is of use to them before they actually buy the product from you. That way, you are contributing to them. They, in turn, with that knowledge, have the ability now to contribute not only to their own success, but to others. Okay? Contribution is situation dependent, and it takes the form of that which satisfies their need. And this is one of the reasons that we ask those 3 questions at the end of this presentation, and the same 3 questions that we've asked in the prior 4 needs. It's so that you can understand what it is that's going to satisfy their need. And finally, if you understand their needs and the means to meet them, you can structure the contribution for the best results without giving away the farm. What does that mean? It means when you understand what the target is and what you need to do to hit the bullseye on that target, it will save you time, money, effort, energy, all of that, because you took the time to understand who you're trying to contribute to and how in turn you can help them to contribute to the lives of others, because then they feel really good about knowing you. Okay. So the hierarchy, contribution is right there on the hierarchy of the 6 basic human needs. The need for certainty creates a need for change. Change creates the need for growth. It leads to growth. Growth leads to, well, it leads to connections. Why? Because as you grow, you necessarily encounter new paths in life, and that connects you not only with people, but it connects you with opportunities, experiences, and situations that help you grow. Your customer as well, right? Connection leads to opportunity for contribution. That's kind of embedded in the prior statement, but that's true. When you connect to a group of people, let's say you connect to your local Lions Club, you've connected to the opportunity to contribute. That snowballs into contributing in the individual lives and organizations you may encounter. And finally, contribution becomes the seeds that flourish into an orchard of opportunity in many forms. So when you make an impact on an individual, think it in terms of not just the one thing, but how does that branch out and how does that affect you? How does that influence you? How does that create opportunity for you? It may be a single individual, it may be a business, it may be a marketplace, maybe the whole globe. But keep in mind that your contribution is a seed that can sprout into many different directions. Okay, now do not get tasked as a taker. Okay, I'm going to read this quote from Wallace Wattles. This is the one I alluded to at the beginning. Give every man more in use value than you take from him in cash value. Then you are adding to the life of the world by every business transaction. And that's in chapter 6 of The Science of Getting Rich. What does that mean? First of all, this book was written in 1910. So the context of his writing is in the societal norms of 1910, but they're equally applicable today. If you haven't read that book, I encourage you to do so. Read it with an open mind and an open heart because it's written in the language of the 1900s, early 1900s. All right, so what does this mean? Use value. Use value is what your customer, your client, or your team member who works with you is looking to get from what they contribute to you. Okay? You could look at it as what's in it for me? No, it's more, okay, what will it do for me? And what do I have to pay to get it? And it's not just money, it could be time, energy, emotion. Okay. Now, the opposite of contribution is taking. Taking, when somebody perceives that you are taking from them without giving them, that's a problem. Now they don't like you and they don't trust you. If you take more from somebody than you give them in this use value we're talking about, then they will conclude that it was a bad decision to buy your product or to take from you or receive from you whatever it was that they paid you to get. So you got to be real careful with how you market your product. Now think about it. You've seen hype out there, right? Work 2 hours a day and earn $500,000 a year. And here's proof. Well, maybe one guy did it, maybe two, and maybe it's an AI generated fabricated story. But the bottom line is if you overhype something and the vast majority of the marketplace you're trying to serve cannot possibly conceive of or achieve that, then you're going to be branded as a taker. You just want to take their money and they'll get nothing from it. So you can extrapolate that to the various different forms, but be very, very careful, right? And finally, understand what others value, understand what they need, understand the use value and how it's measured by them. Now, I'm going to go into these two concepts here. Use value, let's break it down to two forms. There's the received use value and the perceived use value. So when you're contributing something to the marketplace, again, whether it's goods, services, leadership, okay, the individuals, the marketplace that you are approaching either sees that in fact, when they buy this product, they will receive a use value. They can measure it. It is tangible. They can see it. They know it to be factual because A, they've used it. They've seen somebody else use it. It's intuitively obvious to the most casual of observers that the thing works. As far as they're concerned, they know it, right? But then there's the perceived use value. This is a tough one, but this is where a lot of people operate. And this is where the KLT gets whacked with a hammer if you're not careful. Perceived use value, you can't necessarily measure it. It's hoped for or assumed, it's expected or intuited that it could be beneficial. It's feelable. You can feel that maybe it works, or you feel like it's going to work emotionally. And you can extrapolate to, okay, if it works this way, then it should help me. And maybe I'll feel it, maybe I won't. This is the touchy-feely, I hope this works for me use value. And it's very difficult to sidestep this if you overhype a product, if you overhype your marketing. A lot of the world, for example, nutritional supplements, you can go out there and look at all these nutritional supplement ads. You get whacked on every single day on Facebook or in your email. Many of them probably work, but I can tell you many that don't. Like there's the one that are going to correct your vision. There's the ones that are going to correct your migraines. The ones that are going to do. Let's see, what was another real popular one? Oh yes, the cholesterol cutting ones. And if you look at them, all they are is a collection of herbs, a whole bunch of stuff mixed up at some composting place somewhere out there. A third party formulator, and they hang all this theory on it. And they go and say, well, this herb does this and this herb does that and this one does that. There's no concrete proof that it works, but yet people will buy it. They'll buy it for what they perceive it will do for them. Now, I know I've taken those, I bought them, they didn't work. I perceived that they would. I bought into the whole story behind the herbs and all the stuff, and especially those crazy video newsletters where they've got some guy saying, well, I invented this and it was because, I was a veteran and I did this and that. And I came across this secret guy who came up to me one day who worked for the CIA and said, I'm going to disclose his secret to you. Oh, that's BS, right? But the point being is it allows people to get hope. And so they buy a product because they hope it'll work, because it's been triggered on their need, but it doesn't really work. So the KLT factor gets destroyed. So be very careful when you're dealing with a situation where the use value falls into the perceived category. You got to be very conservative, very, very professional. Okay. 6 basic needs as we map them over the 6 elements of human wellness. Well, today we're talking about contribution, of course. So in this area of the 6 elements of human wellness, this is where we overlay the basic needs. So we're going to overlay contribution on these 6 elements of human wellness. Now, when people look at contribution, they want and they seek a contribution to their physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, relationships, and financial wellness elements. But what they resent is when a contribution ends up taking away from those things. Now, that can be the contribution you made to them turns out to be bogus, ineffective, wasn't what they hoped, or it could be that how they were told, how they were trained and educated to contribute to the marketplace turned out to be a bust, and that detracted from these areas. And those are just hypotheticals. But the bottom line is understanding that your target customer, your target marketplace, wants and seeks contribution that will elevate their lives and enable them to contribute to others. That's the natural state of humanity. And they will resent anything that takes away from that capability. So, our 3 questions. Okay. Now, these questions, they don't necessarily flow perfectly every time because each of these basic human needs don't necessarily just overlay with the same grammatical form. But you understand what we're doing here, okay? When my need for contribution of intellectual wellness is fulfilled, my physical, emotional, spiritual, relationships, financial state will be better, the same, or worse. Now, as I've said in the prior presentations, we ask these questions in 2 ways. First, you're asking for you, and then you're asking, assuming that you are them. Because you need to ask the question for yourself to understand how would you react, because that enables you to have more empathy with the customer, okay? So, in other words, when your need for contribution is fulfilled, how does that influence your 6 elements of human wellness? How does that influence your overall wellness and your individual wellness in these areas? If it's better, you're enthusiastic. If it's the same, well, you're disappointed because the contribution didn't seem to be worth what you paid for it, but it wasn't bad. It was a good try. Or if it's worse, man, they disengage. They run. All right. Now, what if it's unfulfilled? When my need for contribution of intellectual wellness is unfulfilled, my state will be, state of physical, emotional, spiritual, relationships, and financial, better, same, or worse. Now, as I've said in the past presentations, if something is unfulfilled, how could it possibly be better? Well, the whole point of asking the question is to ask that question. If your need for contribution is unfulfilled, does that in any way create a better state of wellness in any of these areas? Now, usually the answer is going to be no, but you got to ask the question because that helps you to better understand what the tangents might be, right? And finally, this question. I call this the so what question. In the prior two questions, we talked about the need being fulfilled or unfulfilled. But what if there's just no contribution? Well, what does that mean? Well, that simply means that it didn't apply. There's no contribution. Let's say when there is no contribution to my intellectual wellness, my state in these various areas will be better, same, or worse. What that means is your product may not have a contribution to this given area of wellness, and that's okay. All right, but you got to ask the question. For example, we're talking about intellectual just as an example. But let's say this: when there is no contribution to my state of spiritual wellness, my financial state will be the same. It will have no impact. What does that mean? Well, it may mean nothing, but in asking the question, it may turn out that they're saying, well, actually, what I was looking for was to be able to grow my spiritual wellness, and I wanted contribution to do that for me. Okay, asking that question. If you say, well, gee, maybe it would have an impact. See, now you have the insight to look at the marketplace and know to ask that question. Be on the lookout for those indicators that is important to your marketplace. So that's why we ask these three questions. So one more time, once more with our definition of entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur is somebody who identifies and understands the needs of others, then with courage, conviction, and resourcefulness, connects them with a means of fulfilling their needs. Now let's map that over using contribution. An entrepreneur, someone who contributes to the lives of others by identifying and understanding their needs, then with courage, conviction, and resourcefulness, connecting them with a means of fulfilling their needs. Contribution. Okay, it's your shining moment as an entrepreneur. Now, as with all of the 6 basic human needs, our objective is to understand and apply them to both us and them. I've said that a couple, 3 times during this presentation. To do that, you must first seek to understand and then be understood. In other words, understand their need, then try to help them. Okay? Using the formulas that I'm teaching here, they're simple, but you got to be consistent with them so that you become a more natural entrepreneur by practicing these philosophies and ideas. Now, you will find your own way how to apply these teachings. Okay, we're on contribution right now. We're going to be moving on to the next basic human need, which is significance. And that is another one of those that it's a touchy-feely kind of thing, but it's something that you can learn to teach on your own. So this 6 basic human needs series is really about getting you to think more, to create more, to be in the mode of being a creator and not a competitor, right? Let me just dart real quickly back to that because I think I overshot that without going over. Let's see if it's back here. Yeah, there it is, right at the bottom. You are to become a creator, not a competitor. What does that mean? Well, basically, what that says is this. A creator is somebody who seeks to add value to the lives of others, focuses on who you are, what you have to offer, and focuses on elevating others, and understands that there is abundance in the universe, abundance within you to make that happen. If you're a competitor, then you live in a scarcity world. Your job is to take from others so that you can thrive, survive, and benefit. The competition, you're always looking over your back at somebody coming up after you. So you're burning energy being a competitor, but you don't need to be a competitor. You just need to be a contributor, a creator. See, that's what that means. Okay, well, with that said, that's today's episode. Okay. So be proud and confident of what you know and can contribute. Look for opportunities to grow who you are, to be, do, have, and give more, and help your customers, your clients, your teammates, your prospective associates to be, do, have, and give more. Never underestimate the impact and influence of what you do for others. Look for the opportunities to help others to become a greater version of themselves to do exactly what we've talked about here. Now, it's about them and how much you can help them. Help them to be, do, have, and give more. You contribute to them, they contribute to others. Now, I've had some people tell me, well, you're really idealistic about this entrepreneur thing. So, yeah, it's not idealistic, it's just practical, it's reality. What I learned many years ago, what I've learned from reading books, including The Science of Getting Rich, is be a creator. Help people to become creators of success for others. That's what it is. All right. Well, that's it. So with that said, we will see you then in the next episode where we're going to go into significance, the last of the human needs, and cover that. That's one of those, like I said, it's a touchy-feely kind of thing to some, people feeling, well, I don't feel significant. They're looking for significance. People will judge others saying, well, they act that way because they're trying to find significance. Well, it's a human need. People want to be significant in one make, shape, way, or another. And how can you help them? And that's what we're going to go into. All right. Well, with that said, thank you for being here today. And we'll see you out there on that frontier of opportunity, of entrepreneurship, where you can make a difference and be rewarded for doing it. Take care. We'll see you in the next episode.